Hi everyone. For today's book review, we're going to be checking out this fascinating aircraft, the CAC Boomerang, Australia's World War II fighter. In 1942, Australia was suffering an existential crisis. How could it possibly defend itself against invasion? In terms of naval capacity, it had a relatively good-sized navy for its population size. It also had a good shipbuilding capacity. Throughout World War II, it would end up building over 40 Bathurst-class corvettes. These are ships that are very similar in shape and form to the Flower-class Atlantic escorts. They had the capacity to design and build destroyers as well, but anything bigger, slightly out of their industrial reach. In terms of armor, overnight, Australia had to develop and build a tank, and they were relatively successful with the Sentinel, which was a decent tank considering the circumstances in which it was built and, the very limited industrial resources available. In the air, the fighter plane that was generated is the subject of this book, the Boomerang. And this particular book covers all aspects of the Boomerang, from its design, construction, both in terms of technical and political motivations, through to its entry into service, what happened to it, how it was adapted, variations of the aircraft itself. There's a chapter dedicated to the mechanics of the aircraft, so looking at the literal nuts and bolts of the aircraft, followed by chapters regarding the squadrons that used this aircraft and those who sadly lost their life in action while flying this aircraft. Finally, there is a roundup of what elements of the Boomerang are still alive and which ones are preserved and on display for those who are interested to go and see. So this book is a complete history of this fascinating aircraft. It is written well, nice and clearly. There is no denseness to it. Some books can get overwhelming with their detail and their technical elements. This book has a fine balance with all that. It is very easy to read. You can see in the photos up here in the corner, it is profusely illustrated with both black and white as well as color photos, and with this publication from Avonmore, you're also going to get a handful of CGI illustrations as well that complement the images. What is fascinating to me is just understanding the basis of this aircraft and how it came about. The Boomerang was a development of the Australian Wirraway general purpose aircraft, which in itself was a development of the Texan Advanced Trainer. And despite the attempts to revolutionize the aircraft with new wings and a heavier engine, the results were mixed. As a frontline fighter, unfortunately, the Boomerang was less than successful. It could not compete against the Zeros, the Tonys, and the Oscars that it was meant to fight against. However, when adapted to the ground support role, or the Army Support role rather, this aircraft excelled. It was also fantastic at doing photo reconnaissance. Being very fast at low levels, being a steady aircraft, the Boomerang found its niche in attacking and supporting the army when needed. And this would ultimately be the saving grace of this aircraft. As World War II progressed, supplies of the P-40 as well as eventually the P-51 Mustang and air Cobras would be supplied to Australian pilots, and there would no longer be a need to use the Boomerang, which quite frankly was outclassed. And this book is honest in its treatment of the aircraft, both in its advantages and in its limitations. You've seen up here the variety of images that are on display here. This book is a beautiful tribute to this aircraft, written clearly and distinctly, and it will appeal to those who are interested in aviation of the Second World War, who are interested in Australian aviation, who are interested in those rare aircraft, those one-offs, or those almost rans, almost wers planes that, tried to be good, but just through sheer limitations weren't. And in this case, it ultimately had a saving grace and ultimately was used for a very good purpose. All in all, this is a fantastic book regarding a fascinating aircraft, written clearly and profusely illustrated. So if you are interested in aviation in World War II, then by all means do check out this book. It is highly recommended at 4 Captain's Hats. Do enjoy.